know what she said, she might just change your life.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Bentley, as said, in studio with Kate Wheeler, and we are joined by Tricia Ryan, who is the chair of the Toronto chapter of Women in Leadership. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Now, you're also the president of Focal Point International, so you are in business.
Yes, I am.
And what is it that we women are doing wrong? This is the eternal question that we talk about all the time. And we look at it from different points of view, but obviously, women in leadership, that would be a focal point for them.
That old glass ceiling.
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing anything wrong. I think that we, in each decade, are learning. What's fascinating today is that we have 3 generations of women in a workforce. You've got the baby boomer, the Gen X, and the millennial all working together. This has certainly caused some opportunities and challenges because there is the visceral thought inside, I would never do that, that a boomer might have when a millennial comes forward. I don't think we're doing anything wrong, but there's been some very compelling research that suggests that if women were paid the same, and the numbers are still showing that there is a disparity somewhere in the 30% range, and that if we had the same opportunities as men, and this is not a men-bashing thing, certainly there's so many opportunities with us working together, and I do think millennial men are definitely demonstrating that with working in groups and being so cooperative. And certainly, if I'm allowed to name some of the different companies, I recently was at a women's forum where the president of KPMG has come forward. He is certainly a proponent of diversity issues, both whether it's just women's issues as well as other diversity issues in the workplace. But he made a comment about what really struck home with him was that he has daughters and sons, and he looked and said, my daughter is earning 30% less in the future than my son would for the same job. And I'm saying, yes, and try and tell her why she gets 30 cents less on the dollar for her allowance. I don't think she would find that a really equitable situation. So there are lots of convergent things happening today. I don't think we're doing anything wrong. I think what we're trying to do by working together with women in leadership groups, of which there are a number across this country, is to put us in a comfortable place to support one another and differentiate the sponsorship element of progressing in your career and the mentorship aspects.
Well, you mentioned a survey of 4,000 employees at large companies, and the difference in men, the number of men and the number of women who aspire to be CEO. That's shocking.
36% of men said they want to be CEO, and only 18% of women say the same.
Could it be, though, we're not getting the same career value out of what we're doing, number one? There's no question that there is the biological clock and women bump up against it, and then there is childbearing. But there could well be that glass ceiling that happens, and so some ways there is a bit of a shift or deference to doing other things that are more creative. I know, take the law profession, there's certainly well over 50% of law schools contain women. The law firms hire them, and the numbers show that within 7 years many of them have left. It isn't that men want them to leave, they really want to support them, and I think it's fabulous. I've met women in career development companies. Law firms have retained them to help them transition back in after having children. So there are some really wonderful things happening, and the numbers don't speak probably so positively for us, but maybe that will galvanize us.
Do you think men and women are looking for different things, have a different bar in a career or a work life?
Well, what we do know is that if you do career planning and career success, number one, you have a stronger sense of purpose. You do tend to out-earn or have higher incomes. You have higher levels of satisfaction within your job, and you certainly can manage and weather the storms that happen, whether you're in an organization that gets bought out or isn't working out for you, where you don't maybe have a people fit, as well as just the transition times if you want to take some time off and then go back. An example being, I decided to go back and do an MBA in France 5 years ago in my 50s, and had to transition coming back to North America. Thought I might stay. Those all require skills.
Well, when you talk about career planning, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's certainly different today than when I certainly started out with my career. You went through university was very general. Today, there's a lot of specificity, and certainly the way that if you look at the job descriptions in today's market, it's a very specific and vertical talent. People want to hire bang on the job description rather than being so specific and broad.
Well, and there's a point that we've discussed with somebody else. Men say there's 10 points. If men have 3 points that they match, they'll say, oh, I'll apply for the job. If women have 7, they think they're not up to the job. Why is that? What is it about, a woman's mental state that thinks so differently from a man?
I know that the research has also shown, as well as just the experience of dialoguing with women, that we get a recruiter might say that you have to meet all the points, and then okay, we believe them. And think of all the career paths that are now available online, where people can support one another around how to get a job, whether it's through something like LinkedIn, but even all the recruiters that write the perfect resumes for you, etc. Certainly, we have been the ones that have said work hard. If we work hard, we'll be noticed, and I think that's one of our flaws.
Why? Why is that a flaw? Work hard, you'll get noticed.
Because if you take the networking scenario, which we've had discussions many times in Women in Leadership, and we're actually having someone come out and actually show women. Women come to a networking session, and I see them all go into the room and sit there with their iPods and iPads and talk to their friends. As opposed, they came to network. I actually go into the room and take them out and say, did you come alone? I want you to meet people. That's why you came to network. Now, if I go to something on my own, that is not what I would do. I'd do exactly like all those other people, pretend to be engaged in an electronic device. And yet now when I'm in charge, I take on this whole new role where I want to meet everyone in the room and make sure that they are networking and that they're comfortable and they're really glad that they showed up. It has been shown that women will stay at that desk 5 more minutes and the men go in and they socialize and networking. Once again, back to mentorship and sponsorship, they'll stand out with someone more senior in an organization by showing up. And yet, I guess we probably have to do a little focus group to ask who feels more comfortable really doing that.
What's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship?
So a mentorship would be someone that you actually would be working with. Take at Will, we have a formal mentorship program that goes over a 6-month period, and the mentor and mentee can continue to have an ongoing relationship. I mentor 2 young women through Futurepreneur. They have questions, they just send me emails, they want to phone me, they want to talk, meet for lunch. A sponsorship is where you have really sort of a brief, could be lunch and drink with someone more senior in an organization. You don't ask anything of them, but you try and contribute. And the idea is they keep you in mind and recommend you when you want to be looking forward for career opportunities. So the idea is to manage and support that person so that you stand out for them, as opposed to looking at them as a potential therapist or your coach for life. And there is a distinction. There's certainly been books written on this, and it seems to be a great way to network and be recommended for career path opportunities.
Now, I would think that networking, networking and having a support system, whether it's mentorship or sponsorship, is probably never been more crucial, given that we have an economy now where, for example, in our industry, you can work as hard as you want and network as much as you want, and layoffs just continue because it's just changing so dramatically. And how does that affect people who are starting out, like these millennials that start out, and what you say to them? Because they're working hard, networking, and then that industry kind of disappears. And then they start all over again somewhere else.
There is no question that whether it's networking, net weaving might be the new term.
Ooh, I like that. Net weaving.
Net weaving.
Ooh, can I borrow that?
You can borrow that. And Dave from Company of Women was the originator of that. So networking, to your point, to some degree, we volunteer to network ourselves to death and done internships for free.
Yep.
And, at the end of your 3 to 6 months of giving blood and sweat, say, where is this all going? There is no question that there has to be, once again, being very purposeful around it and having some things that you've set up in your mindset of where the cutoff is in that commitment to some of that activity. But there's certainly some very viable organizations, like Company Women really supports entrepreneurial women. versus some of the other associations, Women in Leadership is supporting women in terms of their education, WXN a little bit more senior in management. I think you have to be purposeful in terms of which associations you go to. Try them all out, though. Make sure that you know the shoe fits you and you find your kind of people. And certainly volunteering, which is certainly something that came up in our discussions. You can give back a lot, but you can get an awful lot out of it. I volunteer with Will, and I'm able to put in place my leadership skills, the ones that you use at your job, are using every day now in developing the volunteer base that I'm working with, and it's a completely different challenge from the workplace where you probably have a little bit of positional power.
Well, Tricia, we have to take a break, but I'd like to talk to you about, after the break, about whether you, because millennials are being told, have a foot on every lily pad, don't put everything in one basket because of the way the world is changing, and how you approach that with them with the advice that you give. So we're going to take a break. This is What She Said on Canada Talks, channel 167, SiriusXM. Stay with us. And we are back with Tricia Ryan, who is the chair of the Toronto chapter of Women in Leadership, and we're talking all things jobs, career, women, glass ceilings, and net weaving, the
Net
new
weaving.
word.
Well, we want to talk about, how to continue to develop skills. And one of the things I think that faces women alone is babies, having a baby. Now, Google is one of the companies that is now offering to pay for women to vitrify their eggs. So they can have their eggs, saved at 27, 28, 29, and then decide to have babies later with fresh eggs, which, as I was saying in the break, I'm not sure if that's a good thing, a weird thing, but it only affects women. I mean, we are the only ones that can do this. I mean, how much of an impact is a maternity leave on your career?
Well, a maternity leave can be significant. We've certainly seen lots of people take them and lots of people not come back, but there's certainly ways to maximize a maternity leave. One is you can do some professional development. You can do keep in touch kind of days with your colleagues. You can explore innovative childcare options, and you can build contact lists. You can volunteer. I think with the internet, you have so much more opportunity with regards to taking courses and webinars. There is the women who teach internet classes. It's sort of almost for cost in Toronto. So if you want to learn a new skill, whether it's web skills, etc., beyond just typing in Word and mastering Excel, I think with workshops, getting other mothers to do things together, there are lots of ways to keep yourself up professionally during that time period. Now, there's also lots of people that really quite enjoy taking that time off, and it's a time even to explore perhaps career paths and opportunities that you didn't even think were existing based upon what you did in your career development. And this is where we see the innovation of so many entrepreneurial ideas where women come forward with unique ideas, and who would have thought of that and who needed one of those, and there you go.
But Tricia, at the end of the day, has anything really changed in the fact that when it comes to having children in a family, the woman pays the price? And I'm assuming here we're talking about everybody is working, because today
Sure,
nobody,
most people are. Yes.
most people are, because nobody can really afford to live on one salary. Very few people can, and we're in, and we're still the haves, right? So the women are still paying the price.
So we are, but is the question between a couple, look at your salary, look at mine, and then, well, if the man is earning more money, it's a lot easier to justify, unless there's always the stay-at-home father, which is certainly paternity leave has certainly developed. What we are finding in research, and it supports that males feel it's as important as women in terms of what happens with their children. They're just as committed to leaving to get to see the play and pick them up, or whether they're sick, and sharing. And job sharing by parents is something that I've observed quite often, where dad takes half day with someone sick and mom takes the half day. So women, for sure, we are sacrificing. I don't know if that's a money driver in that decision, because dad earns more, so okay, I'll do the bigger role play on that. But you are seeing some very creative ways that people are trying to explore that period.
Yeah, well, it may be, but you don't see the CEO of one of the top 5 banks taking 6 months off. maternity or paternity leave. You see it, but you don't see it at the ranks that women are trying to achieve equality.
I'm not going to disagree there, though I have to say I was so inspired listening to the president of KPMG. He was such a conscious man in support of all the diversity issues at his organization, and I'm not even here. It was the first time I'd ever heard him speak, but he certainly would be someone I think that probably would have considered doing some paternity time. And so with role models like that, maybe more men will have the nerve to do that.
So tell us a little bit about Women in Leadership.
Well, it is a charity, in fact. It's national. We have chapters in many of the major urban centers, whether it's Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, etc. And right now there's even one being set up in St. John's. And what we want to do is do educational programs that allow women to connect and develop their leadership skills, but also within a supportive, nurturing environment.
Is most of this affordable?
We have programs when we have key sponsors, like Bloomberg News recently sponsored a Women in Energy breakfast series, and we were able to invite people to come at no cost. And I know some women sort of said, well, I'm not in the energy field, why would I want to come? We had the most amazing speaker that day, and it really wouldn't matter what the field was. She was demonstrating all the skills, the key skills that a leader has to have, whether it's from being visionary, good communicator, being creative, and having courage. So those kinds of workshops are available. We do online trainings. We have a webinar series called the E-Side, the emotional side of leadership, where we go through personal best skills as well as leadership skills. For $200, you can have well over 10 workshops, and you can repeat them at no cost because they're offered a couple of times a day on usually Thursday evenings. Then we have our live events, as well as we have our mentorship program. And as someone who would like to be a mentor, there's no cost to being a mentor, and we charge the mentee $300, and that's a 6-month program where they build a really solid relationship with someone and then go on to long-term have a relationship with them. So very affordable relative to the one-day workshops that might be $500 when you come downtown, and they'll look great and you want to attend.
So who are you looking at? What kind of women, what kind of careers are you looking for women to be mentors?
So it really, it's so diverse. We've had people from the banks, and we've had people from ad agencies, and people from the coaches, and et cetera. It's a diverse range of mentor-mentees that have been involved in the program. It is We have formal classes in the evenings once a month where we would come together, whether it would be like at the Women in the Arts facility in Toronto or at the Ivy Foundation, where we do formalized sessions for them, and then the mentors and mentees meet on their own with their own schedule based upon what the needs are with the two of them.
Now they say timing is everything, and you're saying that right now it's paramount because over the next decade, mass numbers of government executives and private sector managers are slated to retire. We're seeing the tail end of the boomers go. So there's lots of opportunities coming up, and we need to grab hold of them.
Lots of opportunities in that they're retiring and there's new positions perhaps opening up, but then there's lots of opportunities for those kinds of people to have whole new career opportunities where they could come into volunteering and developing their skills and maybe finding a whole new career path.
So I would ask you, you've mentioned the three groups, millennials, Gen X, and boomers. A quick takeaway for each one of those groups, your best advice.
For career?
Yeah.
For development.
Yeah.
For career development. I think for every single one of them, career development is imperative, and you can go live or you can go online. The focus, having a career path or focus, perhaps you do need to meet with a coach and decide what part of transitioning, whether it's up the ladder within an organization, or are you transitioning to some new opportunity because you want to wind down a little bit but do something more creative. So definitely some career planning would be critical. Educational focus would be important. We've heard, and Kate, you were mentioning, for that millennial, on every lily pad, try multiple things. And yet, from a hiring standpoint, it seems that everyone's looking so vertically. One of the things I often say is, look at all the job postings. What is it about it that you like? What element of that career posting is attractive to you? Even doing something like a disc profile, you can go online, and these are a relatively inexpensive tool. It's a communication style tool, but it has wonderful descriptions of who you are as a person. Use those in your resume to be creative.
What's
and to
a disc profile? I've never
So,
heard of it.
It's TTI is an organization in the United States, and D usually stands for dominant, I inspiring, S for secure and sensible, and C for sort of cautious and conservative. All of us have a little bit of all of those skills within us, but we tend to have a dominance. So, for example, I'm high DI typically, and so a D person is very focused on tasks, but an I person is very important and focused on people. The S person on people, and the C a bit task-driven. When you have that blend of skills, it kind of lends to the way that you do your job and communicate with people. And so in having a DISC profile, I remember the first time I did one, and you typically have an adapted style for work and then who you really are. And if they're out of kilter, that often means you're in the wrong job. But usually they're not too different, because most of us think the way we're doing it is right. So, correct, whatever. But it was so funny to look at it and say, there's some beautiful descriptors. And StrengthsFinder is another really great resource tool. Wonderful book. And the concept behind that particular book, and I think it's Gallup supported, is, and these are like $30, not $3,000. Is that you should be leaning to your strengths, not your weaknesses. And, you know, one time in the workplace, they would say, you're not so good at it, you better go get a course and improve on that. Instead, hire to your weaknesses and work on your strengths.
So how do people connect with you, with the organization?
Women in Leadership, it's womeninleadership.ca. We're there, and the local chapters are there across the country, and they can see our various programs, and feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but we're there on the website and they can have a look.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so many tips for all of us.
Great, thank you. It was wonderful to be here. Thanks so much.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.